Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Among the many talks and topics that we shared with you, I particularly like this topic because I think it's something that resonates with each one of you. They say life is a campaign and not a battle. It has its defeats and its victories. But when each one of us goes through life challenges, each one of us responds differently. At the same time, I need to add that when you look at other people who, in your own eyes, are successful, when you talk to them, you realize they have a story to tell, a story of pain. But one day, through Allah's mercy, they were inspired to lift themselves up and they lead a full life, enjoying every moment and fulfilling their potential. The question is, how do you deal with disappointment? And that's an important question. Inshallah, I pray that through the interaction with our speakers here, the panelists, we'll begin to re-look at it, inshallah, lead a meaningful and full life. Yasin, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Yasin, when you talk about disappointments, what comes to your mind?
Idris, thank you. Firstly, I want to answer, I watched the last segment and I'm very, very impressed by the quality of the people that you have on this show. Also, I'm very honored to be surrounded by or joined by these two astute gentlemen. So I'm not going to cover the Islamic or philosophical way of how to deal with disappointment because I think Maulana is more than adequate in covering it. And Nizam has got a lot more grey hair than I have, so he's more than adequately educated in covering it. But I'm going to talk to you from my own life experiences. So something that has happened to me, something that has happened in real time, and something I can speak to from what I've lived. So to answer your question, how do you deal with disappointment? I think the Oxford Dictionary describes disappointment as a depression or sadness from the non-fulfillment of it's not an objective, but a non-fulfillment of an expectation. Firstly, I don't believe in disappointment. Because if you set expectations, then we're setting ourselves up for disappointment. But if we strive for excellence and we don't reach that expectation, then we can't be disappointed because by that, and in all intent and purposes, that is the way of Allah. And to kick this discussion off, I think that's how I would handle how we deal with disappointment. And how I would deal with disappointment, I'll obviously tell you guys later in the show a little bit of my life story. But to answer your question, I think that's where I'll stop now.
Maulana, disappointment, what comes to your mind?
Yeah, in fact, I'm surprised Brother Yasin said he's just going to talk like that, but I mean very clearly. You can hear this, besides the Oxford definition, the others, it's coming from his heart, from his soul. And being a Muslim person, he's actually articulating what any definition would resonate in Quran or in the Sunnah. And it's not much different from that where you have an expectation. And it's not a question of going for excellence on the one hand, but an expectation that it must be absolutely fulfilled to your desire. I think that is problematic. So it means in going out towards fulfilling your life or living it, I think those first steps are important. And perhaps later on we could talk about how the Quran and the Sunnah could alert us, perhaps even restructure our thinking patterns so that we really don't set ourselves up for such disappointment that will depress us, even change the psychochemicals in our brains, because then we would need interventions. And Islam has always been preventative and curative. So we'll expand on that, inshallah, with a more insight from Quran and Sunnah, inshallah. But I thank you for assisting me in giving the same definition
Alhamdulillah.
with a little bit different foundation.
It's I know I recall there was a friend of mine. I went to the particular town and they gave me a topic and they tried to make it as complex and as pedantic as possible about the Muslim school movement, And my friend, he is articulate, he has a command of the language. So he gave a beautiful, elaborate presentation. So I got up, I said, I want to thank my friend for delivering my speech. So, alhamdulillah. Nizam, disappointment on a personal level, what comes to your mind?
Look, the way I see it, I look at disappointment, right, as a signal. As you said so rightly, it's about setting up expectations. So if you look at the signal, it's something that is being said to us that we haven't reached the mark. And now we have to look at it and say, what can we learn from that process? And then the most important thing is to say, right, there's a lesson, there's always a blessing in disguise with everything. And one doesn't have to get emotional about it. One has to look at it and say, what is it? Disappointments can happen at different levels. So you look at it on a personal level, we get disappointed because we set up an expectation, we become too ambitious, we didn't achieve our goals, objectives. On the other hand, it's a relational disappointment. We have a relationship with our spouse, or we have a relationship with family members. We get disappointed about something in the community, in the ummah. Then you look at disappointment where we get disappointed where we lost something. There could be a loss of life, there could be something, a mishap. So disappointment is at multiple levels, but the most important thing is how we respond to it. It's the way we respond to disappointment.
I think, Nizam, you covered a wide range and you asked a very critical question. I mean, if I can just say this, disappointments are part of life. And once you understand, this is a part of life. As they say, the bend in the road is not the end in the road. So how should one deal when one of your expectations have not been met? How should you respond? Because that's an important thing, because I know of individuals who have cut themselves off from society because of a disappointment and something that is totally out of their control,
I think to sum it up without sounding too poetic, the comeback is better than the setback. So, and I take my cue from Nizam, it's how you deal with the disappointment. So I'll give you a brief history of my life, if you give me an indulgence of 2 minutes. When I was 33 years old, I've always been a professional bodybuilder. When I was 33 years old, I was diagnosed with terminal cancer. It's Hodgkin's lymphoma, but I was diagnosed very late into the disease. So the normal medical prognosis of Hodgkin's lymphoma is 6 months. That's the life expectancy once the disease becomes aggressive enough. It's very receptive to chemotherapy, but it's very aggressive. So I was diagnosed probably about 4 or 5 months into the disease, being asymptomatic, but also being in denial, in not wanting to accept that a 33-year-old guy who's got everything going for him, he's got a successful business, he's got a beautiful wife, he's got a kid, life is just taking off, can be diagnosed with cancer. Nevertheless, cut a long story short, I'm sat in the doctor's office and we've been through a barrage of tests and blood tests and all of that, and lo and behold, I'm diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma. There's 9 active tumors. The primary tumor is about 6 centimeters by 6 centimeters, which is about that big. I remember clearly it was a Thursday afternoon, I think, and my doctor was actually booked to go on holiday, of which he postponed because he had to do an emergency surgery to take the primary out. It was growing so aggressively. We then started chemotherapy on the Tuesday, having consulted with the oncologist the Tuesday morning. We still asked him, my wife and my dad were with me at the time, and they asked, can we maybe take these results to America or take these results to Cleveland or, and the doctor's response was simple. You can do what you like, but he's going to die within the time. You go and come back.
Wow.
So that was a Tuesday morning. The Tuesday afternoon, I started chemotherapy. Something that was scheduled to have 8 chemos became 12, and then 12 became 14, and I had every side effect. In fact, I think I can write the book on chemotherapy side effects, because I've had side effects that weren't even invented. So not to take up too much time, but I'll
please
answer more.
I think it's an important story.
So I started the chemotherapy, and thereafter it was all downhill. Downhill to the point where, everybody's watched movies and everybody has an idea, a basic idea of what chemo is, but what it actually is, what they show you in the movie is, contrary to Hollywood, it's an under-dramatization of what real-life chemotherapy is actually. So yeah, the hair loss and the weight loss and all of that, but they don't show you the constant vomiting and the 3-day nausea and the gut-wrenching, belligerent siege of your organs that chemo actually, it literally takes over your body. So what it does is medically it kills the cells and then your cells regenerate, and it's supposed to regenerate, excuse me, healthy cells. But in that process, you literally die. So personally, I've had 48-degree temperatures, 45-degree temperatures. I've been hallucinating. I saw the angels come and go. I saw the light at the end of the tunnel. They turned me around and sent me back. I've had 17 blood transfusions. I've had organ failure, liver failure, kidney failure, renal failure, lung failure. And yet, I've asked myself, and naturally there was a disappointment. Naturally, was the why me? Why me? And then, you come to realize, and a lot of people have asked me, and I do a lot of motivational speaking, and I do a lot of counseling, and everybody who I've counseled, 4 people this week have asked me alone, didn't you ask yourself why you? Did your relationship with Allah grow more? And my answer is no. My answer was, why not me? Because Allah will only give people the tests that He feels or that He knows, obviously, in His infinite knowledge, that can handle those tests and they can come through those tests and they can be subjects of a testament of what the power of prayer is and the power of absolute faith is. And I'm a living testament of what the power of prayer is. So during all of this sickness, what happens is they put you in isolation. Isolation is a little room with no windows, no doors, just an air conditioner and a bed and a little bathroom. So I was in full lung failure. So I was on oxygen. I was in pre-renal failure. My urethra, it's not a TV talk, but my urethra had narrowed, so I couldn't pass any urine. My mouth was ulcerated, my throat was ulcerated, so I couldn't eat. I had lost at that time about 27 kilograms of weight, literally overnight. And I just laid there. And I was on a blood transfusion as well. So I think I was on my 15th or 12th or 15th blood transfusion. And this is now lying 3 weeks in isolation. And it's true isolation, it's a prison. You get one visitor during the day for an hour, you get one visitor during the night for an hour, and then they lock the door from the outside. So you get no other visitors. My daughter at the time was 3, and I could hear her voice from the outside of the room saying, "Is my daddy dead? Is my daddy alive? Is my dad going to live?" And then I asked my doctor the one day, I said, "Listen, just give it to me straight. What's going to happen here?" He says, "Look, you're very sick. Maybe you live, maybe you die. Today, I don't know. Let's see. It's 8 o'clock now, so he used to do his rounds and then come to see me last because we built some sort of a rapport and some sort of relationship." And I just prayed. And I said, "Allah, it's a Thursday night. If it's in your wisdom to heal me, then please heal me from today. And if it's in your wisdom for me not to heal, then take my life. But I cannot live as a sub-person." And I never looked back. I got stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger. So the sicker I became, the better I got. I don't know if that makes any sense, but the sicker I became, the better I got. So pertinent to the topic, disappointment doesn't exist in my vocabulary because it's not why me, it's why not me. If I can be the example of faith and prayer, then why not me?
I think it's an appropriate time for us to take a break because really I can see the emotion in your eyes and it's really consuming. And we can see that. And may your story be an inspiration because we would like all of us to interrogate you and ask you questions to understand this because, I don't know. I was just thinking as perhaps Nizam, you might be also Maulana. What if I was in that situation? How would we respond? So you can see that if you made a superficial judgment, you see Yasin here, wonderful muscles, looking young and strappy, alhamdulillah, and, exuding that kind of success, you'd assume everything is fine. And it's important that we, meet each other so that we can uplift each other and learn from other people. So we'll be back immediately after this.